begins to moan. The windows start to slam and the doors commence to jam. All of a sudden the lights go out. There's terror all about. You think you've gone insane when somebody calls your name. Then you hear the sound of footsteps echo in the hall. But when you open up the door, there's no one there at all. Was that just the window? Someone creeping up the stairs. You get so nervous that you nearly miss your underwears. You never been so scared by the sound of something strange. No rattle of bombs and chains. And you get misgivings living in a haunted house. They're scratching at the door. Feel a heartbeat through the floor. It's a ghostly rhythm living in a haunted house. The plates and silverware go flying through the air. Feel a hand around your neck and you become a nervous wreck. You jump into your bed, pull the covers over your head. You think it's just a dream until you hear somebody scream. Your heart jumps up into your throat, you're paralyzed with fear. Then you hear a demon voice say, "Get out of here!" You start to run, but there is nowhere left for you to hide. You realize you're standing in the spot where someone died. You're terrified by the sound of something strange. The rattle of bones and chains. And you get misgivings living in a haunted house. They're scratching at the door. Hear the heartbeat through the floor. Yeah, the ghost got rhythm living in a haunted house. And the ghost goes. That sounds so good, it's scary. Suddenly, the phone rings. Hello? Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Hello? Hello? Who is this? Oh my God! The line's been cut! The phone! It's dead! It sounds is something strange. The rattle of bones and chains. And you get misgivings living in a haunted house. It's scratching at the door. Feel a heartbeat through the floor. And you're just not wanting. It's a haunted house. Know what I'm saying? Yeah, boy, this house is bugging. Okay. Hey, can you girls keep it down, please? I'm trying to get some sleep here. Ew! Okay, who slimed my pillow? Yuck! And whoever wrote, "You're dead," in blood on the bathroom mirror, I want it cleaned up before I get up in the morning. Hey, let's not get fresh here, okay? Oh, hey, come on, stop! Oh, that tickle! No, stop! On it! Stop!
Oh, hi. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Brigitte Bandit is her name from Extragrams. If y'all hadn't heard of Extragrams, I spend most of my time on Instagram just like watching their videos. They're amazing. Drag queens at your door, like what could be better? I'm Becky Bullard. That was nice. This is Texorcism. Thank you so much for being here. The very first event from Democrasexy. Democrasexy is my new venture that is all about pleasure activism and feminine power and creative civic engagement. And I am so, so grateful to all of your enthusiasm for being here. And I think before anything else, we should give a really big round of applause to everybody who worked on anything in the Capitol this past several months, fighting for our rights. Thank y'all. Jeez. I think we need to party. So I'll just tell you really quickly what to expect at this event. I want this to be a place, I was thinking about like, what are witches like? Witches are just like the most themselves they can be. So when I was getting ready for today, I was like, oh, I should probably pluck my chin hairs. And then I was like, wait a minute. No, witches have chin hairs. So do I. So please feel free to be the most yourself that you can be in this space. What else can you expect? Up next, we're gonna have Angeliska from Sister Temperance Tarot to do a reading and a blessing for us. After that, we'll have our panel discussion with some very illustrious guests. And then, I can't even believe it, but Gina Chavez is gonna do a performance for us. And then I'll send you out with a couple of missions that I think you will like. So without further ado, I'll bring up Angeliska, also known as Sister Temperance Tarot. Pronouns are they and she. And she has really been a balm to my soul during pandemic, watching her tarot readings, especially her full moon readings and new moon readings. She just really weaves together social justice and witchy woo in a way that is really very special. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Becky, and thank you for everyone that came together to create this incredible event tonight. I'm really just blown away to be in a room with people and faces, honestly, and all these gorgeous witches. Yeah, this is a long time coming, right? And that's really what our reading is about tonight. The cards that I pulled with this powerful, juicy, fierce Aries full moon that we just had. Did y'all feel that one? Yeah, a little spicy, a little intense. And I think we needed that burst of energy because it's been a long, dark time in the hermit's cave. So these are the cards that I pulled for our blessing, for our tarot magic. And in the center, you'll see our heart card is the Hermit. Should surprise no one that the Hermit came up for a lot of people and a lot of tarot readings throughout the past year and a half of this long, dark pandemic. And there were probably many times where a lot of you felt like this Ten of Swords right there. Real rock bottom feeling, right? And especially when so many dark and bleak moments happened in Texas. Losing our right to reproductive freedom. I can say that when I pulled this card, I had a really intense emotional reaction to it. And the image that came through was of Jerry Santoro. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her, but she was a Ukrainian immigrant who had a difficult life and had an unwanted pregnancy. And she died alone, face down on a hotel floor. And I just had a huge wave of grief for her because that Ten of Swords moment, it brought up this feeling of never again. Never again should anyone who is pregnant have to die alone like that. I placed a photo of her on the altar, and I just want to give a trigger warning that it is a very visceral image. If you don't feel prepared to see it, don't come. If you do want to honor her and her spirit and all of the spirits of anyone who has died in that way, please come and pay your respects. And if you feel the grief, let yourself feel it. At the same time, on the other side of the Hermit, we have the Nine of Cups. And when the Nine of Cups came up, I thought about the Jane Collective. Anyone familiar with the Jane Collective? If you're not, go and Google both of these names and these groups. Jane Collective was an organization that helped many, many, many people receive abortions and receive the care that they needed. It was an underground collective organization that was made of friends, made of people who care. And the message that really came through as we're in this place of closure, the Nine of Cups, the Ten of Swords, really wrapping up this intense energy, is that we need each other. In these moments when we are at our lowest, when we feel so deeply afraid, we have to remember that we have community, that we are not alone, that we have people who have our backs no matter what. When this legislation went through, I was so struck by how many people started posting, hey, if you get in trouble and you need to take a little vacation to Colorado or to New York or wherever, I got your back. Come see me. Come stay. I'll take care of you. And I just thought, no matter what happens, we witches of all backgrounds, all races, all genders are going to stick together and we're going to fight back. We're going to have each other's backs. We're going to help each other. We're going to love each other. So none of us have to be in this place. And if we are, we know we can pick up a phone. We can reach out. We can ask for help, right? So with the Hermit and the Hierophant, these are our big major arcana. And really, when I pulled these cards for us, y'all, I was just like, all right, okay, yeah. This message is big. It was powerful. I wasn't sure what was going to come up. The Hierophant is about spiritual community. So I really love seeing the Hierophant and the Nine of Cups together, right? Nine of Cups is like our emotional community, our people. And the Hierophant is our spiritual community. And spiritual community is what we're doing right here, right now, as witches, doing something that honestly, like these hats and these dresses and this, this is shit that would have gotten us burned, y'all. Our ancestors were burned for this shit. And we get to do it. We get to be together out and proud as witches, as spiritual people, as people who care deeply. That's tremendous to me. Every single person who is about to speak on this panel is a Hierophant. The Hierophant is spiritual community. It represents our spiritual teachers. It represents leadership, the people who are willing to get up and speak and to hold that place. And it's not one person, P.S. Like, I'm not a guru kind of person. I'm not a fellowship kind of person. I'm a fellowship kind of person. It's about everybody in the room together, making it happen together, because we can't do this alone, right? We go within, we go into the hermit's cave, and we come out with wisdom. And we come out seeking connection because we need each other desperately. If we're going to move forward, our final card crowning this entire reading, Two of Wands, yes! A breath of hope, a vision moving forward. It's going to be really important tonight that we hold in our hearts, in our bellies, in our bones. If you got a womb, you want to hold it in there, go for it. This vision of a better future, that a better world is possible, and that we can build it together. So if you're willing, I'd love right now to invite you all just to take some deep breaths and feeling your breath moving through all the way into your toes, into your body, calling upon everything that you felt in the past year and a half, your loneliness, your fear, your anger, your rage, your grief, your joy, your love for all your besties, your gratitude for everyone that's had your back in your lowest points, all your hope for the future, and an invitation to step into deeper community, to step into leadership, and to step into a tomorrow that we are going to build together. So mote it be. Thank you all so, so much for being here. And thank you to everyone who made this magic happen tonight. And let's make some big magic for this fall, for this winter, for this ancestor season, and moving forward to create the change that we want to see in the world. Yeah? You with me?
Hello? Yes, it is on. Okay, y'all, she's amazing, right? Yeah. Yeah, at Sister Temperance Tarot on Instagram. And she also does private tarot readings via Zoom. So make sure you get with her. I think you're hanging around, right? You're going to hang around for a little bit if people want to talk to you about... Amazing. Okay, so as they're setting up for the panel and our panelists are about to come up, I just want to say thank you so much to the Cathedral for co-hosting this event. What an incredible space is this, right? Where better to perform a Texorcism than in a church? So they are a women's art collective. You can see all the art on the walls is incredible. They also do their own events that are amazing here. It's a co-working space. When I decide to get out of my pajamas to work, I come here. And it's available for event rental also, so you too can hold your own Texorcism or whatever else you would like to do. Okay, I would love to have our panelists come up and join us. Not sure where everybody is. Somewhere around. Cool, I'll be over here. Okay, coming up. A few minutes late because she was doing a CNN interview. No big deal. Wendy Davis. So I'm sure most of you know who Wendy Davis is. She's a former Texas state senator. She founded Deeds Not Words, which is training the next generation of advocates. Thank you, Wendy. So happy to have you here. Dyana Limon-Mercado. Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Texas Votes. Have you slept at all lately? No. Okay, and Marsha Jones, Executive Director of the Afiya Center. The Afiya Center is the only reproductive organization in North Texas that is founded and run by Black women. And y'all, how amazing does she look? Like these shoes, Okay, so my goal for this conversation, and it's gonna be really hard because I feel like this event could be a 3-day event. Like there is so much to cover and so much that I wanna learn from y'all, but we're gonna try and keep it, pretty short. So my goal is that all of us will walk away from this conversation understanding what the hell is going on with our abortion rights, how the hell did we get here, and what the hell do we do about it next? So I would love, Dyana, for you to kind of kick us off. I know you went to DC recently, and you're kind of really deep in the fight between the state and federal level and what's going on. So tell us.
Oh my gosh, what's going on? And we could all talk about it. All of our organizations, Deeds Not Words, Afiya Center, Planned Parenthood Texas Votes, all went to DC together with a wonderful delegation of about 60 Texas advocates, including patients, clients, our wonderful advocates from our organizations who've been working in the Capitol, up to DC for a couple of days to lobby Congress and our senators and talk to the White House directly about how we can get some real federal relief into Texas. And not only to Texas, but all of our red states that are experiencing hostile governments that are taking away everybody's right to access. And so that was, I thought, a really great next step. Sometimes it feels like, what else can we do? We've lobbied the legislature, the legislative session is over, we're gerrymandered, we have these terrible maps, like, what the fuck? But thankfully, we all elected together, right, a friendly federal administration and a better Congress. Things are, however, though, the Women's Health Protection Act, which passed the House and would protect, basically codify Roe across the country, Even though we know Roe is the floor and is not the ceiling, Roe itself does not guarantee access to everybody and also not most people. But it did pass the House as a first step. It is stuck in the Senate right now, along with everything else that Joe Manchin is holding up. So if you're like,
let's hex Joe. Can we like hex Joe?
I'm just like,
after?
can we hang out in what state? West Virginia forever? Like, I just want to go knock on doors in West Virginia, honestly. I'm like, because...
Get on your brooms, witches. We're going to West Virginia.
I'm like, we got to get democracy reform and voting rights protected, and this, along with all of the other rights that our communities are counting on.
Thank you for that update. And so today, Supreme Court, they decided not to help us out at all, right?
I'm going to let the lawyer talk.
Well, so today the Supreme Court made a decision that they're going to move forward and hear on an expedited basis 2 different procedural challenges. Hi, Kathy Valentine. 2 different procedural challenges to Senate Bill 8. One of them was filed by Whole Woman's Health along with Planned Parenthood and other plaintiffs, challenging, obviously, the text of the law itself, the constitutionality of the law. And then the other was the Department of Justice filing a suit also challenging that constitutionality. And what the Supreme Court today said was, we're going to hear both of those on an expedited basis, but we're only going to hear the procedural questions that they raise, not the underlying constitutionality of Senate Bill 8. And the procedural question is this: can a state sidestep the unconstitutionality of a law by putting its enforcement in the hands of private citizens rather than in the hands of the state? That's the procedural question. And
sorry, real quick, do y'all know what SB 8 does?
I'm sorry.
Just to back up, in case anybody isn't clear on how that law works, maybe you can just mention.
Just very briefly, what Senate Bill 8 does is it empowers private citizens to essentially serve as vigilantes against abortion and to report anyone that they suspect of aiding and abetting an abortion in Texas and filing suit against them in state court. That person can be liable for a minimum of $10,000 if they're found to have aided and abetted an abortion post 6 weeks, essentially. And that person also, if they're found liable under the law, has to pay the opposing counsel fees of the person who sued them. And so even though everyone believes the law is unconstitutional, the abortion clinics across Texas have complied with it out of fear that their doctors and other clinic workers are going to be personally sued and be at great personal financial risk as a consequence of this law. And what's fascinating and horrible about it is that Texas Right to Life and others who supported this law, advocated for it, and are fighting to keep it in place, they haven't had to file a single lawsuit under the law. But the threat of the law has been enough to completely shut down post 6 week abortions in our state. And that's the question that's being pushed to the Supreme Court right now. Normally, if a state passed a law like this on its own, if Mississippi or some other state tried to pass a 6 week ban, it would clearly violate Roe. And it's happened in other states, and immediately the federal courts have blocked the enforcement of those laws because a state cannot pass an unconstitutional law and cannot enforce an unconstitutional law. But here, the way they sidestepped it was by putting the enforcement authority into the hands of these private citizens to file these lawsuits. And so that's the question the court's going to answer. I'm a little bit encouraged that they're actually bringing it up on such an expedited basis. They're going to hear it on November the 1st. And it may be the case that they decide that this procedure is an incorrect one, that it cannot allow a state to do what Texas has done. If that's the case, then we will have legal, safe abortions in Texas post 6 weeks again. But it's all leading up to the case that's going to be heard on December the 1st, which is a case out of Mississippi. And that case, the Dobbs case, is answering the question whether a 15-week abortion limit passed by a state is constitutional. And that's where we're probably going to see a real adjustment of Roe, if not the outright overturning of Roe.
And somebody please remind me, is November 1st, is that Dia de los Muertos? Okay, I hope that we can celebrate the death of this bill on that day. So one of the things I think is really interesting about SB8 is that it punishes the people who are helping someone get an abortion, not actually the person getting the abortion, but anybody who helps them. And I think that's really interesting because so many people do need help getting abortion. And so I would love to hear from you, Marsha. For people who aren't familiar with the term reproductive justice, can you get a little bit more into that and the landscape of who can access abortion and how we can help?
So reproductive justice just essentially posites that folk have the right for full bodily autonomy, absolute full bodily autonomy. And that just don't stop at birthing or not birthing. Absolutely full bodily autonomy to show up in the world the way in which you show up in the world and be able to do that with total autonomy. But reproductive justice also says that folk have the right to parent, and they have the right to identify and define and self-define what families look like and being able to parent in that way. Reproductive justice says that you have the right to not parent or to not be pregnant and have the resources to not parent and to not pregnant abortions or other forms of birth control. And then reproductive justice says that you have the right to parent the children that you do have in a way that is sustainable. And so that means that we cannot keep criminalizing folk for being poor. So in a way that is sustainable, and also in a way that affirms what that parenting and that family look like, and also being able to parent without the fear that your children are going to be shot dead by the police. Okay. So we have the right to do that. So we get the right to parent inside and not be held hostage by state-sanctioned violence. And so it is important that one of the things that's happening right now that I'm super excited about, I've been telling people, I have never been asked to talk this much around abortion. And the reason that I'm usually not asked to talk around abortion is because I rarely talk about abortions. Abortions are okay, and folk are going to get them, and they're not going to get them, and we're going to keep talking about abortions. And I always say in my circle, is it okay for me to talk the way I talk in my circle? I always say, the white girls are going to talk about abortions. You don't have to worry about that. They're going to talk about abortions. But what we don't talk about, and what we are talking about this go around, we are leading this with a reproductive justice lens. We are talking about what literally happens when you remove the right for folk to choose or to decide if they are not going to parent. You are essentially forcing people into poverty. We know that when non-white folk have children, unintentional pregnancies, it increases generational poverty, right? And so that's what you're doing. And also you're in a state like Texas that absolutely refuses. So here's what I'm always confused about. So these right for life people said that they have this right for life thing, right? And then the state of Texas said that they're doing this because of the sanctity of life, right? Which I don't know where they went to school, but they're trying to save a life. And so, but here's the thing, this same state refused to pass a Medicaid bill that would have essentially saved life, right? If they would have given women or folk birthing just 1 year, just an additional 10 months of Medicaid, we would have brought down maternal mortality by like gazillions, right?
And black women are disproportionately. Yeah. Okay.
And who that literally helps and assists, it really is black women, immigrant women, all of these women, right? Which we don't want immigrant women to have health care, period, if we can avoid it. But they don't. And then the state of Texas, they said we're talking about the sanctity of life, right? They don't want to give. We still have more people who are not covered by health care than any place in the United States per capita. So you cannot say that you are fighting for the sanctity of life. And they passed laws that said that cities that chooses to city that chooses to put programs in place that defund, abolish police systems, they won't get like tax or monies or stuff. And so they don't care about life, and they definitely don't care about black lives, because if they cared about black women, if they really cared about black women, they would have made sure that black women had access to health care. If they cared about black women, they would have made sure that black women have access to be able to define what parenting looked like, when parenting should happen, and if it should happen. And they would also have made sure that when trans-identified and gender non-binary folk find themselves pregnant, that they are not forced to carry for 9 months a body inside of their body that their body says is not supposed to be there, and offer absolutely no health care or mental health care to take care of that when you force them to do it. So that's what we look at when we are doing this work in this kind of way. And that's why I don't always talk about abortion, because there are so many things that we have to talk about that we are not talking about. And all of this stuff we're talking about is amazing, right? But the people that I serve in Oak Cliff, they don't even know we're talking about this tonight. It's not even a conversation. The women who come to get abortion, the women who come to get access and care at abortion, I don't know about Planned Parenthood, but the black women who come to the Afiya Center are at least 13 weeks gestation. They're at least 13 weeks gestation. That's the minimum. They're most of the time more than that, but they're never under 9. And there's many reasons that can happen. And also when they come, they don't have any money to put on the table, so it don't matter if every abortion fund in this city make a pledge. If that pledge is just $25 less than what they need, they still can't get the abortion, because when you come to the table with 0, it doesn't matter what you get. And so we're forcing people to be pregnant. We're forcing people to be poor. And the last thing is that you're forcing organizations like a small organization like the Afiya Center, who's trying to make sure that we are not just taking care of we are compassionate, practical abortion fund. So we are making sure that folk have child care when they go and get the abortion. We're making sure that folk have transportation when they go. We're making sure that folk have food for the children that because there's children at home too. The children that they leave at home, we're making sure that if they lose their job, we can try and make sure that we get some rent or something paid in the process, because we are talking about folk that don't have the privilege of taking off, who don't have the privilege of jumping up and going out of town to get an abortion. So that's what happens when you don't tell a reproductive justice kind of led conversation that talks about the entire lived experiences of the folk who are going to those abortion clinics. This is more than about folk who have wombs. This is more than about folk who use their wombs to get pregnant or not getting pregnant. This is about folk who don't have a desire to use their womb for that. That is not what's in their heart, minds, and soul. So we have to reproductive justice. So I think that's why I'm talking now, y'all, because people are finally saying, oh yeah, this is bigger than abortions. And it is all about abortion.
Y'all, I feel like I wish that we're in church, I wish that we had like tithing plates to pass around for the Afiya Center right now. I'm like, yeah. So, that's one thing I'll mention really quickly. In addition to the silent auction in the back and merch, which portions of proceeds are going to these organizations. You can also, if you want to send extra, you can Venmo at Democrasexy and just say Texorcism tip, and all of that, anything that you donate there will be split between the 4 organizations that we're benefiting tonight, or just donate directly to any of the organizations. Like, you don't need me to be in the middle. I want to go back in time quickly to 2013. Yes, some people know what I'm talking about here. So, Wendy, can you remind us what was going on in 2013 and why do so many people have pink tennis shoes in their closets now?
So I remember in the good old days of 2013, right? When we thought we were up against the worst anti-abortion law that any state had ever seen. And there, again, was another kind of clever way of trying to stop access to abortion by putting these targeted regulations against abortion providers that they knew would force them to close. And in fact, if all of those provisions had been allowed to go into place, we would have gone from a state of 42 abortion clinics to a state of 5, a state of 27 million people. And so we, all of us, came together on June 25th of 2013, and we collectively filibustered a bill. In Texas, you can only filibuster a bill if you're trying to get to the end, if you're at the end of a legislative session and you're trying to run out the clock. And we were on the very last day of the first special called session of the legislature, and I started a filibuster alongside so many people from all over Texas who came to the Capitol.
Raise your hand if you were there that day.
Yay, I love that.
Amazing.
I love that. Thank you. And I know a lot of you were with us in spirit, even if you couldn't be there in person. But the filibuster went on for 13 hours. There were a lot of procedural shenanigans that took place, and it was called to an end at about 15 minutes before midnight. And the people who were there showed us what it means to show up. It's such, for me, a beautiful example of what it looks like when we participate in democracy, because there were thousands of people in the Capitol. It was the first time before and since that the Capitol had to be closed because it filled to capacity. And the people who'd sat so respectfully all day, even though they'd seen the tearing apart of Senate rules one by one to bring the filibuster to an end, they shouted with all their might and stomped their feet, and it became beautifully known as the People's Filibuster, because it was the people who helped us get past the midnight deadline. That was a beautiful moment in democracy, in my mind. I hope it was in yours too, in terms of what all of our individual and collective power can create. The law did pass eventually. We were called back to another special session. It passed. The court thankfully barred a provision of the law from going into place, but it allowed another provision to go into place. And over half of our clinics closed in the state. And since that time, I think only 4 have reopened of the more than 20 that closed, because it's not an easy task to open an abortion facility and to staff it with the shortage of doctors and other medical care professionals that are needed. So it's been a desert landscape for abortion in Texas ever since. And organizations like Planned Parenthood and the Afiya Center have worked really hard to make sure that their patients who live far away from a clinic will have the resources that they need to get to a clinic in state, and now, of course, out of state as a consequence of SB 8.
And it's kind of mind-boggling. So I think for me, as somebody who was paying attention in 2013 when that happened, and I felt truly for the first time, I think, since I'd lived in Texas, that, oh, something different is possible than what I have seen so far. I really thought, like, oh, maybe I should start to pay attention, start to do something. But I gotta say, and there's lots of reasons for this because of the pandemic and lots of different, circumstances going on. But in the past couple legislative sessions, it has felt like, we haven't packed the Capitol to capacity. And I count myself in this. I had this idea that, like, oh, people have it handled. Like, abortion rights are handled. Like, these smart people are on top of it, and I don't have to keep showing up. And I'm curious to hear from you, Dyana. Like, have you felt that sense of, like, a diminished involvement?
I haven't felt a diminished involvement. I think it's actually more distributed involvement. I think the beauty of 2013, right, is everybody came together, right? It was like everybody came in person and online, and people were tweeting about it and watching it live. And it was such like a collective but singular like experience in the moment. But there are so many people I met after that that are like, I got so motivated and so involved because I saw Wendy Davis. Y'all, one of my favorite parts of my job is like when we have a young woman who's working for us like in advocacy in the first time. She's like volunteering for the first time or something like that. And then we get to come across Wendy Davis at an event, and they're like, oh my God, there's Wendy Davis. And I'm like, would you like to meet her? She's totally nice and normal. And then they lose their mind. But, you know, that happened for so many people. To your point, they were like, I got so motivated, and then they went into their communities and they built other things, and they built things that felt really relevant to them and felt really authentic to them and to their community, right? There are so many audiences, y'all, that we can reach and need to be reached by this. There's democracy now. We're at a Texorcism, you know? There's the Afiya Center is doing amazing work all across the state in very different ways than what Planned Parenthood does and than Deeds Not Words does. And like, that's important. So I feel like we haven't had that same like collective one big moment, but I mean, truthfully, that was like the Barack Obama of like abortion like moments, you know? So like, we might not get that like exact moment again, but people are doing so much since then in so many different ways. And I think it's really beautiful to see, right? Like, a big part of bodily autonomy is letting people advocate the way that feels best to them, right? And advocacy feels different for all different kinds of people and all different kinds of community. And I think that's a really important thing in our movement, is to welcome as many people to do what feels right for them, to feel welcome into this movement, and to express that in a way that talks to their communities.
Oh, you are singing my song right now. Because that, like, I feel like there are so many people who want to be involved but feel intimidated. They feel like, they feel scared, and I feel like this all the time. They feel scared to ask questions because they feel like they should know everything already. And so I've committed to being a professional learner. So I'm just like, hey, guess what? I don't know hardly anything. I'm an expert in nothing. So I'm just gonna like ask all the questions. And I hope that more people feel permission to do that.
You know, the Association of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the American Medical Association, and others, every time one of these bills come up, they weigh in on it. They're always opposed to it. They speak at the legislature. They are one of the greatest advocates against this kind of medical intrusion. And they speak about the danger to women's health by creating these kinds of intrusions. But the sad reality is that the people who are behind these laws, the people who participate in passing these laws, have a singular goal. One of the goals, well, I said singular. Each of them is a little bit different. There's 3 goals in my mind. One of them is there's an authentic moral disagreement with abortion that some people have. It's not the vast majority of people that are working in this anti-abortion movement, though. The second group of people are the group of people who are interested in controlling women. It's a deeply seated misogynistic motivation. And then the third group of people are, in my mind, almost the most loathsome of all. And they're the politicians who get on board with these laws because they've got political ambitions, and they know that this is going to enamor them with a certain group of voters that they need in order to win Republican primaries in this state. And the reality is that because we are such a gerrymandered state, those politicians are rewarded, and they are rewarded by a very small percentage of voters. And these laws are not at all in keeping with what most Texans want to see. And in fact, this latest law, almost 80% of Texans say they disagree vehemently with the fact that it doesn't have an exception for rape and incest. And almost 75% of Texans say they disagree vehemently with the idea that a private vigilante could dictate what you do with your own body. So these aren't popular laws, but they are laws because of the people who are serving us and because they continue to rig the system so that they can be reelected and believe that there's only a certain voter they need to appeal to in order to do that.
I really feel hopeful that we can change minds, the minds who do still need to be changed on this topic. And I do because growing up, I when I was 14, when I was a freshman in high school, I wrote a very passionate essay about how abortion was like the worst thing you could possibly do. And because of my religious upbringing, that's what I had to believe that to be part of that community. And if you decided not to believe something that the community told you you had to be accepted, you couldn't belong anymore. So it's a very compelling structure that they have set up there. But what changed my mind was hearing stories of people who had abortions, people that I loved, people who I was like, wow, I never thought about it that way. And so to me, I think one of the most powerful things that we can do is tell stories. I'm curious to hear from y'all, what do you think we can all do next to get our abortion rights back, to fight for reproductive justice? What do you want to see all of us to do?
I wanted to jump in on the question that
Great.
you had right there. I think that one of the things that's got to happen is that there's got to be more of an outcry. Like, there's got to be more of an outcry from the people. We know what the politicians are doing, but there's got to be more of an outcry. Abortion conversations have got to be a part of the norm. We cannot keep acting like people are not having abortions. We cannot keep acting like people's rights are being taken away from them. Human rights, all of these things we have to, there's got to be more of an outcry. We can't not be afraid to say abortion. We can't even be afraid to talk about what it means. I had somebody just stop me on the street. I don't think they knew they were stopping me. And so she kept saying, you are murdering, you are murdering. And I said, we're not murdering anybody. I said, but here's the thing. Shit, yeah, life stops. And? Yeah. But it stops in a medically safe way. And it stops in a way and it stops at a time when folk choose for it to stop. And so we have to quit being afraid to have that murder conversation with them. Because the minute they call us murderers, we shy away and like, I'm 60, I don't have to shy away from that anymore. I can't get pregnant anyway. And so I just think that we need to face it. We need to talk about what it is, quit running away from it, and have the conversations. Our politicians are not going to, they're not going to vote right anyway. So if we don't say murder, if we don't say death, if we don't say this, so just fight them back. Because I told you, when I said that to her, she had nothing else to say. I was like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. You know, and so that's the thing, because she wasn't ready for it. But anyway, I just wanted to say that we have to fight back. But I feel hopeful. In spite of all of this, I feel hopeful. I feel extremely hopeful. And I'm going to say this and I'm done for the night. The reason why I feel hopeful, I was sharing it with you in the back. So I was really, I was just over this, you know. So I'm too old to just have to keep doing this over and over again. And I got an email a couple of months ago, like right after the Senate Bill 8 happened. And it was a little girl, I can't think of her name. She's from Austin. And she said, I heard about you, and the people in NOW said to reach out to you. And she said, I want you to come and speak at the rally we're having, because, you know, they're taking our rights away as little girls. She's like 11 or 12, like she's a baby, she's a little tiny, little cute thing. And so my team, they usually vet really carefully, you know, because I don't just go everywhere, and I'm tired, I'm old. And so I told him, I said, look, I don't care if she's red, green, orange, or black, she's 11. She's 11 or 12. And so I went. I told her, I'll be there. I don't have to speak, but I will be there because I want to be there to support you. And the other young lady was there who took her senior speech, and she talked about this. And I was so encouraged. I'm not a crier. I was so encouraged to see these babies. And I said, we're going to win. We're going to win this because the babies are fighting. We are going to win this. And we're gonna get a bigger win than Roe. Because it was babies out there. It was non-binary folk out there. It was trans folk out there. And everybody was at the mic. And I'm thinking, I'm probably the oldest one that was there. Like, everybody was babies. And I said, we're going to win. We may not win today, but we're going to win, because that's the outcry that we have to have. These are the folk who want to be the next doctors and the next lawyers and the next politicians and the next people who are doing this. And we're not going to have to wait until they're 100. We're not going to have to wait that long. We are going to win, because these are our children, and our children are going to snatch us right in our houses. They're going to get us right on together in our houses. And that's what I want to see happen. I want there to be an outcry. I want there to be an outcry, and I want us to follow the children, because they are getting this shit right. They are getting it right. I'm telling you, I've seen a lot, and they're getting it right. So that's it for me.
Yeah. Amen.
To that same point, I think what's most important is that we do talk about it and we do normalize talking about it. 1 in 4 women will have an abortion in their lifetime, including me. Anybody else want to raise their hand? I love y'all. Yes. Raise your hand. Speak up. Talk to your friends about it. I always remember this time I was at like a small bachelorette get-together. Oh my gosh, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Y'all, I hope nobody's from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I don't know how we ended up there on this bachelorette party. But we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's like 2 in the morning. We're back in our hotel room. We're just having like chit-chat, right? Like we had a glass of wine. We're talking about our relationships. The subject of abortion came up. And we're in a group of about 5, and they are all women of color. And one of the women that was with us made some sort of stigmatizing statement to the point of like women, like those women using abortion as birth control, you know? And I was like, what do you mean? Talk to me about that, you know? And she was like, well, you know, the ones who just, you know, go around and, you know, not using contraception. And I was like, let me tell you how hard it is to get an abortion, right? Like, it's not a fun thing you go do on your Sunday instead of brunch, you know? Like, it's a multi-trip, costly process that is emotionally taxing, not because of the decision you're making, but because of all the barriers put up to the decision you're trying to make. So we talked through it, and I said, you know, I've had an abortion, and I shared my story with her. You know, I was 19 at the time. I was in an abusive relationship. I was trying to escape my abuser. A story that is, I think, probably very acceptable to people who generally feel opposed to abortion, right? And she was like, well, I'm not talking about, you know, those women, not you, you know? And I said, well, what women are we talking about? And she said, well, the ones who have, like, multiple abortions. And I said, well, I've had 2 abortions. And my second abortion is not a tragic story. I was seeing a guy casually. He was seeing other people. I was seeing other people. My birth control failed. The plan B failed. And then I was pregnant. And then I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I always thought I was pro-life until you got pregnant. I thought it was funny. Other people do not see the humor in that moment, but I thought it was hilarious. Right, he supported me. We made the decision together. We went to the clinic together. We split the cost of the procedure, right? And I moved on with my life. And he moved on to, you know, have a wonderful family. I moved on to have a wonderful family. And it was the right decision for us. And I said, you know, many people, you know, have an abortion or multiple abortions. And I was like, to my group of friends, I said, you know, has anybody else here had an abortion that wants to share? And they all raised their hand. Every other woman in the room. And I said, has anybody had 2 abortions? And they all kept their hand up. And right, that took her back, right? She was a close friend of all of us that had these deeply held beliefs that she had never been questioned or confronted with in a personal way where she understood the real experiences that people are going through and the people that are having to make these types of decisions, right? And that she loves people that have had abortions, even though she didn't know that she loved people who had abortions. So that is the most powerful thing you can do, is find ways to tell your story in ways that feel safe and comfortable to you with people who love and support you and will continue to. My dad did not consider himself pro-choice. My dad considered himself very pro-life until I worked for Planned Parenthood. And you know what? My dad's out there putting out yard signs for Wendy Davis if I need him to, and anybody else. You know, my dad's like #1 champion. I will say that night in 2013, I was pregnant with my first baby. I had been in an orange maternity dress for months at that point at the Capitol. I was like this big. Everything comes to a close. It's like, 2 in the morning by the time the cameras left and the people left and the crowd kind of cleared. My feet are so swollen. I've got my bag of swag with me. I got to lug back to my car at the Capitol, and my dad was there, you know? And he just came and he was like, you know, good job, keep up the fight, you know? So I think that's it. Like, talk to your friends, talk to your family, make sure you vote all the time, every single election, and register people to vote.
Gosh, those are both such beautiful commentaries on what to do. And I can say wholeheartedly, I agree with everything that both Dyana and Marsha just said. young people, truly. I'm so committed to trying to make sure that we grow young voices in this state. That's why I founded Deeds Not Words. We train high school and college age young women, mostly on majority minority campuses around the state, how to use their voices, how to know where the room is that you show up and speak in, and how to be effective and bring your truth to a room. And I've been so amazed watching some of these old, white, stodgy lawmakers really sit up and take notice when these young women come in the room and share their truths. And I think the more that we encourage each other, regardless of our age and regardless of our gender, to be a part of this conversation, it really matters. Dyana's story about her father, just a couple of weeks ago, Kathy and I were at Austin City Limits Festival, and we played a little ditty and said a few words about Senate Bill 8. And the stage manager who was there, the next week when I went back, Kathy, he wanted to speak. He has 4 daughters, and he got up on the stage. He's never spoken publicly before. And he said, you know what I want to say to the men here? This is a men's issue too. And this is about my daughters. And it's about all of our futures living in a healthy and strong economy, because women can realize their full potential. And as Marsha so wonderfully reminds all of us and calls us into, this is an issue not just for women, but for our trans and our non-binary community as well. And for everyone to thrive, bodily autonomy has to be. And so as you're talking about this with others, and I hope you will elevate understanding, and you will elevate the reasons that we have to vote, and we can't decide that our one little vote isn't going to matter, because it really does when it's added to the next one and the next one and the next one. That's how we're going to change things here. That's the only way we're going to change things here, ultimately, is by encouraging people to get involved in democracy and exercising their power. And that's why we're seeing all these voter suppression bills right now, y'all, because they're so afraid of our power, so afraid of it. So let's show them what we got.
Y'all, I feel like ready to keep going. Do you feel ready to keep going? That was amazing. Thank you so much. I think we can leave it there for the panel. Can we give a big, big round of applause? Thank y'all so much. I hope that you can get some rest. I know that this has been just a wild time for all of y'all, so don't feel like you have to hang around. Go home and go to bed if you want to. It's been great. I'm going home. Love you. All right, next up, I am so excited to welcome Gina Chavez. I can't even believe it. So, I think most of y'all are probably familiar with her, but she, in 2020, her album, La Que Manda, was nominated for a Latin Grammy. She and one of her musical collaborators, Carrie Rodriguez, they do the theme song for Brene Brown's podcast, Unlocking Us. So cool. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm just so honored that you're here tonight. Oh, we're just gonna mingle for a second while Gina gets set up. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or other things that you were hoping to have answered tonight? Oh, Sarita, please come say something. Yes, we have. So y'all heard about Planned Parenthood Texas Votes. Y'all heard about the Afiya Center. I got very excited about supporting organizations working on reproductive rights and getting more women and non-binary folks elected. So I picked 4 organizations for us to benefit tonight because I was like an overachiever. So Sarita is the executive director? Yeah. Executive director of Emerge Texas, and I would love for you to tell all the folks more about Emerge.
Also, love your earrings. Hi, everyone. As Becky said, my name is Sarita Fontanesi. I am the executive director of Emerge Texas, and I'm gonna step over here. And so incredibly excited to see so many people coming out to support these incredibly important issues and organizations. At Emerge, we recruit, train, and empower Democratic women and femmes to run for office and win. So if you are sick of this shit, maybe run for office. But really, I'll be here, I'll be around. Feel free to reach out, check us out. If you have questions about running for office or just getting more involved in the electoral process, I'm here. I won't shut up about it. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much. Okay, and then the 4th organization that we're supporting tonight is Annie's List. And really all of these organizations, I adore them so much. But Annie's List has a really special place in my heart because after the 2016 election, when I decided to try and figure out what the hell is Texas politics and how do I get involved, I went through Annie's List campaign school. I went to several trainings, and like almost, I would say like 90% of what I know about Texas politics and how to be involved is because of Annie's List. So Christina, do you want to just like give a little plug?
Thank you, Becky. My name is Christina Gomez. I'm the development director at Annie's List. And the redistricting that just happened at the Texas Capitol is what the reason that Annie's List exists. In 2003, the same thing happened. Karl Rove and all of his cronies gerrymandered the hell out of this state, and women, Democratic, progressive, pro-choice women lost their seats. And in effect, we saw various policies and various legislation stripped from us, stripped from women and families that would benefit women and families. And when Annie's List was created, it was created to recruit, elect, and train progressive, pro-choice women to run for Texas statewide office. Like Becky said, we also do advocate training. So if you're not yet ready to run for office, but you want to work on a campaign, you can come to Annie's List and we can teach you how to be the best advocate, the best finance director, the best communications manager, so you can take another role in the political process. I have lots of free swag over there. I'm sitting right here, and I'd love to talk to anybody about how to get involved with Annie's List. You know, Emerge and Annie's List do similar work, and a lot of people come to me and say, oh, is that a problem? There is so much work to be done in this state, right? We are by no means saturated with women running for office and women electing women to office. So work with Emerge. We actually work together a lot. We do trainings together. Get involved with an organization that is recruiting and electing women to office, and then prepare yourself to eventually run also. So that journey can be as long as you need it to be. Thank you so much, Becky, for having us here. And it's wonderful to be with all of you witches. I'm inspired every day and inspired to be with y'all today.
All right, y'all. There's so much light in here. I'm like, I thought I was coming into like a night vibe. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. We got manual ambiance. I like it. Yeah, let's do it. All right, y'all. Let's get it. Woo! Hey. Soy gringa en una tierra latina chelita, en un país central, quiero conocer todo lado. Desde soy en la cima de Salgo, voy deprisa y andando perdida está lleno. Donde me siento voy a que pega pa' que abren la puerta. Como llegar hacia atrás, sigue abierta. Sube, sube las 7. A ver al mundo, sube, sube las 7. A ver al mundo, sube, sube las 7. A ver al mundo, sube, sube las 7. Sorpresa, no hay buses, hoy las noticias gritan al cobrador, mejor tómate una costa. No ganaron la mara esta vez, velocidades, sabe bucero, 2 la primera y la locura, agárrate michero lo que encuentres, bailamos sus canciones, sube, sube las 7. A ver al mundo, sube, sube las 7. Sube, sube las 7. A ver al mundo, sube, sube las 7. A ver. Quiero vagar, aunque me cuesta observar lo que veo a pasar la champa. Desde Tonacatepeque por calles de oro al parque infantil, llegan a Metrocentro y luego galerías, llévame la Gran Vía, el Boulevard de Ejército, la trabazón que había, ando pisto y tu pistola, pero no me controla, ni en Arizona, como tu Ramón, yo no pago la extorsión, tampoco Piolín, ni la mano de Dios, ni nada de la Hermes, y yo mío la Marta, y los demás, así pues te va a cantar, andamos poco, 20 centavos, y me voy porque quedas en todo lado, centro, a Cathedral, pedir a Santoro, Wendy Davis, ya sube, sube las 7. A ver al mundo, sube, sube las 7. A ver al mundo, sube, sube las 7. A ver al mundo, sube, sube las 7. A ver al mundo.
Acondicionado, ancestral. Aire acondicionado. Aire acondicionado, ancestral. Aire acondicionado.
Sube, sube, 7. Aire al mundo, sube, sube las 7. Sube las 7, vamos a ir al mundo, sube, sube las 7. A ir al mundo, hay que correr la ciudad por vistas de boda con una piercing y brindar por libertad. Subimos a los planes, sentarte y concluir. Dame, dame los pupus así me he hecho a dormir. All right, y'all, and now for something completely different. All right, so thank y'all so much. I showed up late, and I'm sorry for that. But this track is actually, it's a song that I put out a while ago in response to Elizabeth Warren being silenced on the Senate floor by Mitch McConnell. It's called She Persisted. And I've somehow gotten to sing this in the presence of Wendy Davis a few times now, so I think I'm gunning for like an opening song slot or closing song. We filmed the remix of this track. It's like a glitter bomb remix of this song that's coming out on November 5th. We filmed a music video with queens from RuPaul's Drag Race and myself doing drag for the first time ever.
And it's been such a beautiful thing to be even more connected to the queer community. I'm queer. I'm married to my beautiful wife, and we've been married for 16 years, but only now, yeah. You know, but only now have we really started to, we actually met at the Catholic Church, at the University of Texas Catholic Center. And what's interesting is we are both still practicing Catholics. And that's often odd in these circles. And I never in my life thought I would be literally singing at the top of my lungs for abortion rights, ever. I never thought I would be that person. But I understand that what my church has done and the ways in which we perpetuate the patriarchy and all of the things that y'all already know, right? I think the thing that I would like to see is that we can still somehow find the humanity in each other. And at the same time, fuck the system, and we need some women up in there. So, so let's go.
My hands are tied, your hands are too. Now we don't know where to go. They're feeding lies, starving the truth. Now we don't know where to go. Don't know what to do, can't deny. Realize we've been here before. History will repeat till we stop that revolving door. They told her to sit down, told her to work hard, told her to stop and wait her turn, told her to shut up, listen. Nevertheless, she persisted. Woo! Let's go. Take us to church, tear us in two. Now we don't know where to go, don't know what to do. Dress up the devil in red, white, and blue. Now we don't know where to go, don't know what to do. Can't deny, realize we've been here before. History will repeat till we stop that revolving door. They told her to sit down, told her to work hard, told her to stop and wait her turn, told her to shut up, listen. Nevertheless, she persisted. Woo! Stories will repeat till we stop that revolving door, till we stop that revolving door. Go! She persisted. Woo! She persisted. Tell us to shut up, listen. Listen, listen. They tell us to sit down, tell us to work hard, tell us to stop and wait our turn, tell us to shut up, listen. Nevertheless, we are persistent.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Brandon.
Hi. I'm Tolly Mosley. It is no one's dream to follow Gina Chavez, but can we give her a round of applause? Oh my God. Oh my God. I have cried probably 13 times tonight and fist pumped in between. I just wanted to say a few things. I've been helping out Becky with this event. She's done 99% of it, but we have a silent auction. And I want to direct your attention to it because we're raising money for the organizations you've heard about tonight. We're trying to raise as much money as we can for the Afiya Center. Guys, who here like just almost bawled whenever Marsha spoke. Yeah. Right. And this is bigger than abortion. We all know that's true. And we all know that minds can change. Funny story. My old neighbor works for Ken Paxton's office and still watches my Instagram stories. You never know who's watching, whose minds can change. We're also raising money for Planned Parenthood Texas Votes, Annie's List, and Emerge. That's a lot of organizations, but we love them all, and all are run by women of color. Annie's List and Emerge are specifically focused on getting more women and non-binary folks elected who will fight for abortion access. Planned Parenthood Texas also works in electoral politics. We heard Wendy right now talking about redistricting. Yes, very important. The Afiya Center is the only reproductive justice organization in Dallas that is run by Black women. We say all this because we want to put into context what we are raising money for here tonight with that silent auction in the back. We deeply believe in all these organizations. All of them are worth your support. Finally, a huge thank you to our sponsors. Guys, whenever SB 8 passed, I was a mess. Raise your hands if you were too when that passed. I called Becky, and she told me that in response, she was going to throw a party. And all of these organizations came to support almost instantly. Marketing this thing was a breeze because people are really excited to be part of work that is meaningful and important and life-saving. So thank you so much to our sponsors, Ranch Rider, Long Drink, Waking Giants behind the brands. Oh my gosh, you guys. Denise and Krista Hernandez, and all the local businesses that donated. Coco Coquette, there's a prize back there right now that you can bid on. Boss Texas Women, Jamie Angelica, Brittany Rochelle, Book Women, Toy Joy, Wild About Music, Zucchini Kill, Future Front Texas, Alter Space Crystals, Elizabeth Lesser, Annie's List, and Package Menswear. We're about to set you loose, but please, before you go, bid on those silent auctions in the back. All of your dollars are going to raise money for organizations doing this vital life-saving work. Finally, if I could get every single person here right now to clap your hands for Becky Bullard and the launch of Democracy. If you're excited by what you've seen here tonight, follow Democracy. Talk about it with your friends. This is pleasure activism, and you are all here a part of it tonight, getting angry, but getting joyful and having fun. Thank you all so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Tali. Okay, before I let you go, I have 2 missions for you. Okay, but I think you're gonna like them. Yeah. Okay, so we talked a lot tonight about community, right? And a lone witch is pretty powerful, can do a lot. But you know what is more powerful? A fucking coven of witches. I would like to cordially invite you to be in my coven. Do you accept? Amazing. You can literally DM me at Democracy on Instagram if you're like, hey, I want to go to this protest, but I have nobody to go with. I will go with you. Hey, I want to hex Mitch McConnell, but I have nobody to hex with. I will hex with you. So that's your first mission. But I also want you to create your own local coven, activism coven. So find a couple of friends who, they did it already. Overachievers. Okay, these folks at the Capitol, I can't even, I'll start to cry if I talk about it too much. Anyway, you need your own local coven, so do that. And your first assignment is, this weekend, take your coven to the polls. This is the only weekend opportunity you have to vote in the election that's going on right now, so make sure that you don't, go vote and then go to brunch tomorrow. Have fun with your coven, amazing. Okay, please vote no on Prop A. Prop A would take money from other public services like emergency services and libraries and parks and EMS, and it would give more money to the police department permanently because of changes that happened at the state legislature. So They're already funded. It's you get it. Okay, but vote yes on Prop B because it's going to give us a whole bunch more parkland. That's amazing. There's also 8 constitutional amendments, and I know a lot of people who have already voted have shown up to the polls thinking it was only the props. There's 8 constitutional amendments, so don't be surprised by that. I'm not going to get into it now, it's a whole thing. But if you go to Democracy on Instagram, there is a saved highlight that tells you what I think about them. Okay, so that's mission 1, Coven, you got it. Okay, mission 2, y'all. Do you know why witches are depicted as flying on brooms? I just learned this recently, and it is delightful. Okay, part of the reason why witches are depicted on brooms, they were burned at the stake because these women used to create like these tinctures and pastes that were hallucinogenic, and they would put them on a broomstick and they would apply them, like, yes, in their vaginas, and it made them hallucinate that they were flying. So that's why witches fly on broomsticks. Okay, witches got burned at the stake because they were seeking pleasure for themselves. Guess what? Guess why people are trying to take away abortion? A big part of it is when a pussy is seeking pleasure for its own sake and not to procreate and not to please a penis, that is an empowered pussy, right? And the patriarchal system does not like an empowered pussy. So please, your last mission of the night, whether you have a pussy or not, go out and give yourself some pleasure, whatever that looks like for you. And if you liked this event tonight, I'm available for hire to create similar events for your organization. But also, I am going to do another event in February, and I can't wait, and I hope that y'all come. It is going to be so fun. So I used to, in the last few years, got very excited about Galentine's Day, right? Any Leslie Knope fans? Yes, so fun. But lately, I've been feeling like Galentine's was a little gender exclusive, and I wanted it, especially after this last legislative session when there were a record number of attacks on our trans and non-binary and intersex community, I wanted to extend the love beyond just gals. So I am creating Y'allentine's Day. It's gonna be so fun. I actually just today when I was getting my makeup done, I talked to my makeup artist about this idea, and I was like, do you think you could like do a little pop-up and like, you know, have people like play with their gender, like maybe like, can I do some like drag king stuff? She's like, yeah, I'll make you like a little beard. And so like, that's gonna be a part of it. Like we can all play with our genders. We can have a better understanding of the full spectrum of humanity so that we can all link arms together and like Care Bear stare against all the terrible shit that's happening in the Texas legislature. So I hope you'll join me for that. So follow me at Democrasexy on Instagram. You can go to democrasexy.com to sign up for my newsletter to make sure you don't miss any future events. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for being here.